The world was a broken, rusty plate under a pale yellow sky. The wind did not blow. It scraped, picking up fine red dust and flinging it against everything. Minsu's heavy boots crunched on the gravelly soil. He was a man built for solid things, for engines and metal and problems he could fix with his hands. This empty, angry place made him feel small. He and Hana were the only two people on this rock as far as they knew. Their job was simple: check the automated survey beacons and look for anything useful. It was lonely work, but it was honest. Their small, boxy lander sat a kilometer away, a tiny silver speck against the vast canyon wall. Hana's voice crackled over the radio in his helmet. "Minsu, are you getting this? The scanner is going crazy." Minsu looked down at the device on his wrist. The screen, usually a calm green, was a mess of flickering red lines. "I see it. It's not a mineral reading, it's wreckage." He crested a small ridge and stopped. Below him, in a jagged scar torn across the plain, lay the remains of a ship. It was like nothing he had ever seen. The metal was a dark, shimmering color like a beetle's shell, and it was twisted into terrible shapes. Small fires still licked at broken pieces. This was not a human ship. "Hana, get over here," he said, his voice low, "and bring the medical kit. The big one." While he waited, Minsu climbed down into the wreckage. The silence was heavy, broken only by the groan of cooling metal. He saw no one, no bodies. He wondered if the crew had escaped. Then he heard it, a sound so faint he almost missed it, a soft, high-pitched whimpering. He followed the sound, his heart beating a little faster. It led him to a large wedge-shaped piece of the hull that had been thrown clear. Behind it, partly crushed, was a smooth pod. A door had been forced open from the inside. The whimpering was coming from inside the pod. Minsu moved carefully, his boots slipping on broken pieces of strange technology. He peered into the dark opening. Inside he saw her. She was tall, incredibly tall and slender. Her skin had a soft, pearly glow even in the dim light. She was wearing robes of a fine, silvery material, now torn and stained. One of her long arms was bent at a wrong angle, clearly broken. She was cradling a small, still form in her one good arm. Her eyes were the most striking thing. They were large and luminous, a deep violet color. When they locked onto Minsu, they were wide with a pain he could almost feel. But beneath the pain was a fierce, burning fear. She pulled the small form closer to her chest, a silent, protective gesture. She was terrified of him. Minsu froze, holding his hands up to show they were empty. He didn't know if she understood the gesture, but he hoped the meaning was clear. He was no threat. Just then Hana arrived, her medic's pack slung over her shoulder. She gasped when she saw the alien woman. "By the stars," she whispered. "She's hurt," Minsu said quietly. "And the child?" "I don't think the child is moving much." Hana slowly moved forward, her movements calm and deliberate. She knelt a few feet from the alien woman, placing her medical kit on the ground. She opened it, showing the clean bandages and vials of medicine inside. "We're here to help," Hana said, her voice soft and steady. She pointed to herself, then to the woman, then to the medical kit. "Help." The alien princess, for she certainly looked like one, stared at Hana, then back at Minsu. Her fear was a wall around her. She said something, her voice a beautiful melodic series of notes, but the tone was sharp and warning. Minsu's eyes were fixed on the child. It was a smaller version of the woman, with the same pearly skin and large eyes. Its eyes were closed, and a dark, shimmering fluid seeped from a nasty wound on its leg. The little chest was barely moving. "We don't have time for this," Minsu said, his engineer's mind cutting through the fear and strangeness. "The child is dying." He took a step forward. The alien woman flinched back, a hiss escaping her lips, but the movement jostled her broken arm, and a wave of fresh agony washed over her face. Her strength was gone. Her good arm loosened its grip on the child. That was all the opening Minsu needed. He moved quickly but not roughly. He knelt in front of her, and with a gentleness that surprised even him, he slid his hands under the small, light body of the alien child. The woman made a desperate guttural sound, but she was too weak to fight him. Her luminous eyes filled with something worse than fear, a helpless despair. "It's okay," Minsu murmured, knowing she couldn't understand the words but hoping she might understand the tone. "It's okay. I've got him." He lifted the child. The boy was so light, almost like a bird. He was cold. Minsu pulled him close, tucking the small head against his shoulder to protect it from the dust and wind. As he did, one of the child's small three-fingered hands came up and weakly gripped the tough fabric of Minsu's work jacket. It was a tiny instinctive gesture of trust. The moment the child was in Minsu's arms, something changed in the woman's face. The desperate fight went out of her. Her body sagged. Her eyes, fixed on Minsu holding her son, lost their sharp fear and were filled with a dazed, exhausted confusion. She had done all she could. Now her child's life was in the hands of this strange, solid being from a species she had been taught to dismiss. Hana was already at the woman's side, carefully supporting her. Let's get them both to the lander. Now. Minsu turned, the alien child held securely against his chest, and began the walk back. The wind scraped at him. The red dust stuck to his visor, but he barely noticed. All his focus was on the small breathing weight in his arms. He could feel the faint, shallow pulse of the child's heartbeat against his own. He didn't know who this woman was. He didn't know why her ship had crashed. He didn't know anything about her people. All he knew was that a child was hurt and a mother was scared. In that moment, for Minsu, nothing else in the universe mattered. He walked on, a simple man carrying an impossible child, leaving the wreckage and 1,000 unanswered questions behind him in the red dust. Create more chapters, headings or parts numbers in each par. The walk back to the lander felt much longer than the walk out. Minsu moved with a careful, steady pace, his arms making a cradle for the small alien child. He was intensely aware of every shift in weight, every faint breath against his neck. The boy was so light, a collection of delicate bones and cool skin. Behind him, he could hear Hana speaking in low, calming tones to the mother, helping her walk despite her own injuries. Their lander, the Morning Star, was not built for beauty. It was a rugged, functional block of metal and ceramic plating, scorched from many entries into many atmospheres. To Minsu, it was home. To the alien woman, Princess Alara, it must have looked like a crude and filthy cave. They brought them inside through the main airlock. The interior was cramped, filled with the hum of life support and the smell of old coffee, machine oil, and recycled air. Hana guided the princess to a low bunk, helping her sit. The woman held her broken arm close, her large eyes scanning the room with a look of pure disbelief. This was the technology of the beings who now held her life in their hands. Minsu carried the boy to the small medical cot bolted to the far wall. It was meant for human anatomy, but it would have to do. He laid the child down as gently as he could. The boy's eyes were still closed, his breathing shallow. Okay, let me see, Hana said, brushing past him. She pulled out her scanner, a simple human device that read basic life signs. It chirped and flickered, confused by the alien biology. It's not getting a clear reading. His vitals are different. But his leg is the main problem. The wound on the boy's leg was deep. The dark, shimmering fluid, his blood, had soaked the fabric of his little suit. Hana worked quickly, cutting the material away to get a better look. She cleaned the area with a sterile solution. Princess Alara made a sharp musical sound from her bunk. She was trying to stand, her face a mask of fresh alarm. She was pointing at Hana's tools, her meaning clear. What are you doing to him? We have to clean it, Hana said, holding up the bottle of clear liquid. To prevent infection. She mimicked spraying it on her own arm. The princess stared, uncomprehending. Their medicine, their methods were as foreign as their ship. Hana didn't have a fancy bone knitter or a dermal regenerator. Such tech was for large colony ships, not a two-person survey lander. Instead, she took out a syringe of a synthesized biological gel. It was a human invention, a sticky, clear substance that promoted rapid clotting and tissue growth. She carefully applied it to the wound. The princess let out a gasp. She began speaking rapidly, her melodic voice rising in pitch. She was clearly horrified. To her advanced eyes, this goo was primitive, almost barbaric. It's okay, Hana murmured, more to the child than the mother. She began wrapping the leg in a clean white bandage. It will help him heal. I promise. Minsu watched the exchange, feeling useless. He was an engineer, not a doctor. His domain was the hum of the engine and the glow of the control panels. He saw the princess's eyes wide with fear and distrust, fixed on the bandaged leg of her son. He knew that look. It was the look of someone who had lost all control. He moved away from the medical cot and went to the small kitchen unit. He took out 2 packets of their standard nutrient paste, one for himself and one for Hana. Then he paused. He looked at the princess. She looked pale and weak. She probably hadn't eaten. He found a 3rd packet. He squeezed the thick beige paste into a bowl and added water, making a simple gruel. He carried it over to her and held it out. She looked from the bowl to his face, her expression one of pure confusion. She said a word that the computer in Hana's med scanner picked up and translated with a flat, electronic voice. Sustenance. Minsu nodded. Yes, food you should eat. She hesitated for a long moment, then reached out with her good hand. Her fingers were long and slender. She took the bowl, but she didn't eat. She just held it, staring into the bland mixture as if it were a great mystery. Meanwhile, the boy on the cot began to stir. A low, pained whimper escaped his lips. His eyes fluttered open, revealing the same luminous violet as his mother's. He saw the strange metallic ceiling, smelled the strange smells, and panic seized him. He tried to sit up, crying out in his own language, a terrified, wailing sound. The princess dropped the bowl of gruel. It clattered to the floor, splattering the paste. She tried to get to her feet, but Hana gently held her back. It's the pain. He's frightened. The boy's cries grew louder, his small body trembling. Minsu felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He couldn't stand the sound. He looked around the cabin, his eyes searching for something, anything that might help. They fell on a small wooden token sitting on the control panel. It was a simple thing, a piece of oak his father had carved for him when he was a boy. It was shaped like a star. It was his good luck charm. He walked over, picked it up, and then went to the medical cot. He knelt down so he was at eye level with the frightened alien child. The boy saw him and flinched, his cries hiccuping into scared silence. His large, wet eyes were fixed on the huge, strange creature leaning over him. Minsu didn't speak. He slowly opened his hand and revealed the wooden star. The boy's eyes shifted from Minsu's face to the object in his hand. His crying softened to a sniffle. The token was simple, organic, so different from the cold, hard surfaces of the ship. Minsu gently placed the token on the cot next to the boy's good hand. The child stared at it for a moment. Then his small, three-fingered hand reached out and touched the smooth, polished wood. He picked it up, his tiny fingers curling around it. He held it to his chest. A deep quiet fell over the cabin. The boy's trembling stopped. He held the wooden star, his eyes growing heavy. The simple, solid presence of the object seemed to comfort him. Within minutes, his breathing evened out and he was asleep again, the token held tightly in his grasp. The silence was profound. Minsu stood up and turned around. Princess Alara was watching him. The fear and panic in her eyes were gone. They were now filled with a deep, unreadable emotion. She looked from her sleeping, peaceful son, to the wooden star in his hand, to the man who had given it to him. She took a slow, shaky breath. She looked at Hana, then back at Minsu. She pointed a slender finger at him, then at her son. She used the word Hana's scanner had translated earlier. You, she began, her voice hesitant. Then she used another word, one the scanner struggled with for a moment before finding a match. Is care? The electronic voice confirmed it. Care, protect, nurture. Minsu looked at her, this elegant alien princess sitting in his messy ship, her son sleeping peacefully because of a piece of wood. He gave a single slow nod. Yes, he said, we care. A single shimmering tear escaped the princess's eye and traced a path down her opalescent cheek. It was not a tear of sadness or of fear. It was a tear of overwhelming, disbelieving gratitude. In all her life, surrounded by technology and protocol and power, no one had ever shown her such a simple, powerful thing. The quiet inside the lander did not last. A sharp, piercing beep broke the silence. It came from the main console. A red light was flashing. Minsu was on his feet in an instant. He moved to the screen, his fingers tapping on the keys. The simple lines of the scanner showed a new shape in the sky. A ship. And it was coming down fast. It's not one of ours, he said, his voice tight. The design, it matches the wreckage. Princess Ilara, who had been watching her son sleep, suddenly went very still. Her head lifted like a deer hearing a predator. She looked at the screen, then at Minsu and Hana. The calm they had built was shattered. Fear was back in her eyes, sharper than before. She spoke a single urgent word. The translation device on Hana's kit, still active, spat out a broken phrase. Not saviors, hunters. Hana's face turned pale. The ones who shot her down? Ilara nodded fiercely. She pointed at the screen, then made a slashing motion across her own neck. Her meaning was terrifyingly clear. These new arrivals were not here to rescue their princess. They were here to finish the job. We have to go. Now, Minsu said. He slammed his hand on the console and the lander's engines groaned to life. Hana, strap them in. Use the cargo webbing in the back. Hana helped the protesting princess into a rear compartment, securing her and the still sleeping boy with strong elastic straps used for holding equipment. Minsu gripped the controls. The lander was not a fighter. It was a sturdy, slow-moving can. It lifted from the ground, its engines kicking up a cloud of red dust. On the screen, the other ship changed course. It was sleek and predatory, a dark arrowhead against the yellow sky. It was much faster. "They've seen us," Minsu said. A beam of brilliant green light lanced past the viewport, missing them by meters. The lander shuddered from the close blast. "They're shooting at us," Hana yelled. Minsu didn't answer. His mind was racing. He couldn't outrun that ship. He couldn't outgun it. Their only chance was to outthink it. He looked down at the terrain scanner. The planet was not a friendly place. It had deep canyons, and more importantly, it had frequent, violent geomagnetic storms that played havoc with sensors. "Hold on," he said, and he pushed the controls forward. The lander dove, heading straight for a massive canyon system that cut through the rusty plains like a giant scar. The enemy ship followed, its movements precise and aggressive. The canyon walls rose around them, dark and red. Minsu flew low, skimming just above the canyon floor. The enemy ship stayed above them, firing down. Rocks exploded around the lander as the green beams hit the walls. "We're sitting ducks down here," Hana shouted, holding onto her seat. "Not for long," Minsu muttered. He checked his scanner. "The storm is coming." Ahead, the air began to shimmer. A geomagnetic storm was like a living fog of energy. It would blind their own sensors, but it would blind the hunters too. He flew straight into the shimmering haze. The viewport flickered with static. The console screens fizzed and wavered. Behind them, the enemy ship slowed, its pilot clearly more cautious. "This is our chance," Minsu said. He cut the main engines and fired the lateral thrusters. The lander slid sideways, slipping into a narrow side canyon, completely hidden from view above. He landed the ship roughly behind a large rock formation. The engines whined into silence. The only sound was the hum of the life support and the frantic beating of their own hearts. "Did we lose them?" Hana whispered. For a few minutes it seemed they had. Then a shadow fell over the canyon entrance. The hunter ship was moving slowly, systematically, scanning each crevice. A smaller, drone-like craft detached from its belly and began to fly into the narrower passages. It was checking everywhere. "They're going to find us," Hana said, her voice tight with fear. Princess Ilara watched from the back, her arm around her son. Her eyes were glued to Minsu. She saw the determination on his face. He was not giving up. Minsu looked at the drone on the screen, then at the rock formations around them. He had an idea, a crazy human idea. Hana, the emergency toolkit, the big seismic charge we use for rock sampling. Hana's eyes went wide. "That's not a weapon." "Today it is," he said. He grabbed the heavy cylinder from the toolkit. It was designed to send a shockwave through rock to test its density. He moved to the airlock. "When I give the signal, be ready to take off." "Don't wait for me." "Minsu, no!" Hana cried, but he was already cycling the airlock door. He slipped out into the canyon. The air was thick with energy from the storm. He could feel the static making his hair stand on end. He saw the hunter's drone, a silent black sphere gliding towards their hiding spot. Minsu moved quickly, keeping to the shadows of the rocks. He placed the seismic charge on the canyon wall opposite their lander. He set the timer for 10 seconds. Then he turned and ran back. The drone detected his movement. It turned, a red targeting laser blinking to life. Minsu dove back into the airlock just as the inner door opened. "Go, now!" he yelled. Hana didn't hesitate. The lander's engines roared. It lifted straight up. Outside, the seismic charge exploded. It didn't make a flash of fire. It made a deep, powerful thump that vibrated through the very rock. A huge section of the canyon wall cracked and collapsed, crashing down in a thunderous avalanche of stone and dust. The hunter's drone was buried instantly. The landslide blocked the side canyon completely. More importantly, the massive shockwave of rock and energy scrambled all sensors in the area. Up above, the main hunter ship was suddenly blind. Its screens were a mess of static. It hovered uncertainly. Inside the lander, Minsu grabbed the controls. He didn't try to run. Instead, he did the last thing the precise, logical Valen pilot would expect. He flew straight up through the dust cloud and passed right over the top of the hunter ship. In the sensor chaos, they were just another piece of debris. He then dropped back down into a different part of the canyon system and powered down all non-essential systems. The lander became a dark, silent rock. They waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The hunter ship, unable to find them, finally gave up. Its engines glowed and it shot up through the atmosphere and was gone. The silence in the lander was absolute. Hana let out a long, shaky breath. She looked at Min-Su, her face full of awe and relief. From the back of the ship, Princess Ilara was staring at Min-Su. She had seen it all. She had seen him not fight with lasers or shields, but with a rock-breaking tool and a landslide. He had used the planet itself as his weapon. He had been unpredictable, illogical, and brilliant. Her son, Kalen, was awake in her arms, clutching the wooden star. He had been quiet through the whole chase, his large eyes watching Min-Su. Ilara looked at this human. He was sweaty and dirty, his hands still trembling from the adrenaline. He had not fought like a warrior of her people. He had fought like a human, and he had won. She did not have the words, but her face showed a new, profound respect. The fear was gone, replaced by something else entirely. It was the beginning of trust. The lander found a new hiding place, a deep cave at the base of the canyon, where the light from the pale sun did not reach. Min-Su set the ship down gently on the rocky floor. The only sound was the quiet tick of the cooling engines and the hum of the air recycler. The fear and noise of the chase were over, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Princess Ilara sat in the dim light, her son Kalen asleep in her lap. She was no longer the terrified victim or the suspicious royal. She was quiet, her thoughts turned inward. Her eyes, luminous in the darkness, kept moving to Min-Su. He was checking the ship's systems, his movements slow and tired. Hana broke the silence. She brought a cup of water to the princess. Ilara took it with a nod of thanks. Her voice was soft and hesitant when she spoke. The translation device on the floor between them flickered to life, its electronic voice flat in the quiet cave. "Your people," she began, searching for the words. "They are not what we were told." Min-Su stopped what he was doing and looked at her. Hana sat down nearby, listening. "What were you told?" Hana asked gently. Ilara took a slow breath. The device translated her melodic words into simple, stark sentences. "We are taught that your kind is chaotic, primitive. You build without a grand plan. You feel too much. Your emotions make you weak. You are a danger to the order of the galaxy." She looked around the cramped, functional cabin. She looked at the simple medical kit that had saved her son's leg. She looked at Min-Su, whose hands could rig a power source and then gently offer a cup of water. "Strength for my people is in perfection," she continued. "Perfect technology, perfect logic, perfect control. To show fear or compassion is a flaw. It is a crack in your armor that an enemy can use." She fell silent for a moment, watching Kalen sleep. His small chest rose and fell evenly. The crude human bandage was clean. The terrible wound was healing. "When you found us," she said, her eyes moving to Min-Su, "I saw only a primitive. I thought your tools were crude. Your ship was ugly. I believed you were weak." She shook her head, a slow, graceful movement. "I was wrong." She pointed a slender finger at Hana. "You shared your food. You used your medicines even though our bodies are strange to you. You asked for nothing." Then she pointed at Min-Su. "And you carried my son. You fought our hunters not with a better weapon, but with a smarter plan. You used the rocks in the storm. You were not afraid to be unpredictable." She looked down at her own hands, one still held stiffly against her chest. "On my ship, before it fell, the soldiers fought with perfect formations. They followed their protocols. And when the enemy used a tactic not in their manuals, they failed. They died with perfect logic." Her voice grew softer, filled with a kind of awe. "You do not have our strength. You have your own. It is a strength of adaptation. You bend when we would break. You see a tool in a rock. You see a friend in a stranger." She looked directly at Min-Su, her violet eyes clear and intense. "You carry your world with you. You do not try to conquer a place. You make it a home no matter where you are. This is a power my people have forgotten." The words hung in the air. The electronic translator fell silent. Min-Su didn't know what to say. He was just a man who fixed things. He had seen a problem, a hurt child, a scared mother, a dangerous enemy, and he had tried to fix it. He had never thought of it as a special kind of strength. Hana reached out and gently touched Ilara's good arm. "It's just what people do," she said. "When someone needs help, you help them." Ilara looked at Hana's hand on her arm, a gesture that would have been unthinkable from a lower-class citizen in her own world. She did not pull away. Instead, she placed her own hand over Hana's for a brief moment. "Yes," Ilara said softly, "it is what your people do. And that is why you are not weak. That is why you are strong." She leaned back against the wall of the cave, a look of deep peace on her face for the first time since they had found her. The misunderstanding had been a wall between them. Now the wall was gone. They sat together in the quiet darkness. Not as human and alien, not as rescuer and rescued, but simply as three people who had faced death together and survived. The signal from the Loyalist Valen ship was a clean, powerful wave that cut through the planet's background static. It was a request for landing coordinates, formal and precise. The fight was over. Minsu guided the large, elegant warship to a safe landing on the plain near their cave. It was 3 times the size of their lander, its hull a seamless, gleaming silver. It made the Morning Star look like a child's toy. When the ramp lowered, a squad of Valen soldiers marched out. They were tall and imposing in their form-fitting armor, their faces stern and unreadable. They moved in perfect unison, a machine of polished metal and silent purpose. At their head was a commander, his helmet tucked under his arm, his expression cold and severe. Princess Ilara stood between Minsu and Hana at the base of their lander's ramp. She had straightened her torn robes as best she could. Her head was high, her bearing once again that of a royal. Kalen stood beside her, holding onto her good hand, his other fist still tightly clutching the wooden star. The Valen commander stopped before them. His eyes swept over the 2 humans with clear, undisguised contempt. He saw their simple clothes, their dirty lander, their tired faces. He saw them as primitives, an annoyance. He gave them no more notice than one would give a piece of dust. He bowed deeply to Princess Ilara. "Your Highness," he said, his voice a low, resonant hum. "We are relieved to find you alive. The traitors have been driven from the system." His eyes then flicked to Minsu and Hana, his lip curling slightly. "These locals, did they impede your survival? Shall we remove them?" He gestured with one hand, and 2 of the soldiers took a step forward, their intent clear. They were going to push the humans aside to erase them from the scene now that their betters had arrived. But before the soldiers could take another step, Princess Ilara moved. She did not shout. She did not panic. She simply took one graceful step forward, placing herself physically between the soldiers and the humans. Her voice when she spoke was not loud, but it was sharp and clear as broken crystal. It was a tone of absolute command that brooked no argument. "Stand down," she said. The soldiers froze instantly. The commander looked startled, his cold confidence cracking for the first time. "Your Highness? These creatures, these people," Ilara interrupted, her voice ringing with authority, "saved the life of your crown prince. They protected him with their own. They faced hunters and death for him." She looked at the commander, her violet eyes blazing. "You will show them the respect owed to saviors of the royal bloodline." The commander was speechless. He looked from the princess to the 2 confused humans and back again. Then Ilara turned. She faced Minsu. The stern expression on her face softened. She looked at him, this solid, simple man who had carried her son through a storm of fire and fear. She saw the kindness in his eyes, the strength in his worn hands. She took another step towards him. Then, in a gesture that made every Valen soldier gasp, she bowed. It was not a small nod. It was a deep, formal bow from the waist, the kind reserved for the highest elders and heroes of the Empire. When she rose, she placed her good hand on Minsu's shoulder. Her touch was firm. She looked him directly in the eyes, and then she turned her head to address the commander, her voice projecting for all to hear. She used a Valen word. It was an old word from a time of legends and epic poems. The translation device in Hana's pocket struggled, its lights flickering wildly before it settled on the closest human equivalent. Guardian. The soldiers stared, their perfect discipline broken by looks of pure shock. The commander's face went pale. Princess Ilara continued, her words meant for her people, but her eyes never leaving Minsu's. "This is Minsu. He carried my wounded son when I could not. He fought for us with the strength of his world and the wisdom of his heart. He is, by the ancient laws of debt and honor, Kalen's sworn guardian. His life is bound to the prince's. Where my son goes, his guardian may walk. His word carries the weight of my house. She then turned to Hana. And this is Hana, his kin in duty. She is under the same protection. The cave was utterly silent. The wind outside seemed to have stopped. The title guardian was not given lightly. It was a sacred bond, a promise that transcended species and rank. It made Minsu, in the eyes of Valen Law, a member of the royal family's innermost circle. Minsu understood only a little of what was happening. He saw the shock on the soldiers' faces. He saw the deep respect in Alara's eyes. He knew that something profound had just changed. He was no longer just a man who fixed things. He was something else now. He looked down. Little Kalen had let go of his mother's hand. The boy walked up to Minsu. He looked up at the big human who had carried him, who had given him the star, who had kept him safe. He didn't say anything. He simply reached out his small three-fingered hand and took Minsu's rough, calloused one. He held it. It was not a gesture of fear or thanks. It was a gesture of trust. A bond being sealed. Minsu looked from the small hand in his, to the proud, grateful face of the princess, to the stunned Valen soldiers who now looked at him not with contempt, but with awe. He had set out that morning to check on some survey beacons. He was just a man, but he had carried a child, and in doing so, he had lifted his own destiny into the stars. He was Minsu, the engineer, and now he was also guardian.